Hakeem Jeffries just wrapped that speech, and that is breaking the record there for the longest speech in Congress. It looks like Republicans will be running the ball, but for quite a while during what was known as the Magic Minute, Hakeem Jeffries commanded the attention at that podium there. Zak Hudak, you probably are hearing where you are. The cheers interrupt, and once again, our apologies to Kelly. We just wanted to bring this to our viewers. We'll probably get back to Kelly, but your reaction to seeing the people standing on their feet there?
I think, Reed, that what we're seeing right now is a reaction to the symbolic aspect of this, which is that Democrats took a stand and delayed what they see as legislation that's bad for the American people and for their constituents, delayed it for over 8 hours. It obviously came to an end, and Republicans are going to get this victory, but it was still a physical feat. These members were here throughout the night, and then Hakeem Jeffries stood for all of that time. I remember seeing Speaker Kevin McCarthy, when he did a similar thing in 2021, actually change his pants into some stretchy Lululemon type dress pants as he went back in. It is a difficult physical feat to speak for that long and just be in there. So I think we're seeing support for Hakeem Jeffries doing that, but also what we were discussing earlier. I think that those Democrats clapping for him recognize that he did get a few attacks in on Republicans in there. He did make some cuts on Republican members who are in battleground districts who are going to have a difficult time explaining their vote here. So I think that was the other aspect of that warm applause he got, that Democrats know that he essentially did everything that a minority leader can do in this situation, where you know you've got a loss, but you try to scrounge together anything you can get. So I think that's his caucus being grateful for that.
Well, and as we look at the House chambers right now, we have a couple of different vantage points. On your left, you can see the congratulations and the back slapping there. People very happy that that record was broken, but not only that record broken, but also one can imagine Democrats' strategy for seed planting, for exactly what you were talking about, the conversations that will now happen back in the districts of these lawmakers who, by the way, were sent to these seats that you see here on live TV on CBS News 24/7 by the voter. The voter is the one who sent them there to do the job. And so it looks like they are planting the seeds for conversations there. Zach, when you look at what's in the bill, be it the tax cuts that the Republicans want to get forward, or the boost in immigration spending, the boost in border security, the boost in defense spending, or the implications to medical care for our nation's most poor people, which do you think Democrats are going to hype the loudest when they do go back to those districts?
I think it's going to be two things. I think the access to medical care, the cutback of some of the Medicaid funding, as well as funding that goes to hospitals. I think that's going to be something that really resonates with voters, and the Democrats will be very loud about. I think also the increase in the deficit is something that in those battleground districts really will resonate, because so many of these Republicans were elected on promises of cutting back spending, bringing down the deficit. So there is actually an element of this bill that goes against a lot of what Republicans, including Donald Trump, have talked about for years. So I think that's a portion that, even though Democrats tend themselves to be more open than Republicans to increasing the deficit, that they can really point to as a broken promise for some of those GOP members. So I think it's going to be those two things, the healthcare aspect and then the deficit aspect.
Well, we know that Hakeem Jeffries talked about those things and a whole lot more in that 8+ hour record-breaking speech. Let's listen in to what he had to say.
And keep pressing. And so as I take my seat, I just want to say to the American people that no matter what the outcome is on this singular day, we're going to press on. We're going to press on. We're going to press on. We're going to press on for our children, press on for our seniors, press on for our veterans, press on for our unions, press on for our farmers, press on for our dreamers, press on for working class Americans, press on for the middle class, press on for all who aspire to be part of the middle class, press on for the poor, Press on for the sick. Press on for the afflicted. Press on for the least. Press on for the lost. Press on for the left behind. Press on for the rule of law. Press on for the American way of life. Press on for democracy. We're going to press on until victory is won. I yield back.
And there's the words, I yield back, that record-setting speech and the promise to press on. Do you know what I think of, Zach? I think of the fact that Democrats, since losing the election with Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket, they've really had wide criticism for not having a very deep bench, not only going into the midterms, but also looking ahead to the next presidential election. Do you get any sense that Hakeem Jeffries, perhaps, has secured his place on a bench for Democrats?
Reed, I think only time will tell, but there's no question that he is increasing his national profile today tremendously, and I think that has happened in previous times when speakers have done stunts like this. But I would also point out that Nancy Pelosi, I suppose, more retired, but from her speakership, she's obviously still in the House. But Kevin McCarthy did a very similar stunt in 2021, and he actually was unable to hold on to his speakership. He was ousted by his own party. It's not a completely analogous situation,
right,
but I say that to say Hakeem Jeffries is no question increasing his profile and increasing the chances that he could be part of that conversation, but nothing is set. And I think being the leader of either the Democratic or Republican caucus in the House is one of the hardest jobs in Washington. So his job will remain a precarious one after this. But you are right to say he's increasing his profile, and I'm sure it will lead to his name coming up in those conversations as we get closer in a way that it might not have otherwise.
Well, and looking at our screen right now, and we know this, there's always two sides to the political pancake. There we go. There's Mike Johnson there. We are anticipating that this bill, dubbed by the president, the big, beautiful bill, could come to a vote very soon here. So to our viewers who are watching, we have crews there in Washington, Zach among them, who are watching up to the minute progress of this bill that we have tracked for so many months. Even after 1 o'clock this morning, President Trump up in the night putting on social media sort of some frustration, Zach, saying that it should be easy to get through and voicing some frustration. But now it looks like there's some relief there on the Republican side with Mike Johnson standing there talking to his constituents.
I'm glad you pointed that out, Reed, because I think it is such an interesting dynamic that we have between the president and the Speaker of the House currently. It's almost as though the president is the lead whip in the House. We saw that happening last night. We saw him making calls and actually making some deals, according to some Republican members, to help get their votes across the line. These are not things we typically see from a president. We might see some pressure applied, but President Trump really likes to roll up his sleeves and get involved in politics in the House, legislative politics. And I think it's particularly notable because of the power that he has over many of these members, particularly those in redder districts, not battleground districts, but districts where there is always a Republican member. Because in those districts, the constituency is so aligned with President Trump that him throwing his support behind a primary challenger could actually lose the seat for these Republican members. So it's a fascinating display here of the bully pulpit being used in ways that I think it has not in decades, where Donald Trump works in conjunction with the Speaker of the House to get these votes through. I think we could say with some degree of confidence that without Donald Trump's help, Mike Johnson would have been pretty unlikely to get all of those members to flip over throughout the night last night. So it is a fascinating display of two politicians on the opposite ends of DC working together to get this done.
All right, so as we see Mike Johnson there at the podium, once again, just assurance for our audience, when we see it, you see it. As soon as that bill that's had quite a journey back and forth from the House to the Senate and beyond with a lot of dialogue to follow, as soon as we see it come to a vote, you will see it here on CBS News 24/7. Zak Hudak, thank you so much.